This is the 8-9 Combo Podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones.
This is the 8-9 Combo. This is the Test Match post-mortem. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And mate, as our podcast listeners just heard there, Georgian flyer Aka Tabutsadze with a length of the field special that definitely caused a bit of panic amongst Wallabies supporters. Soon after halftime there this afternoon and tonight, Australia ultimately going on to win 40-29 at Allianz Stadium. That was a hell of a try, that, whoever scored it at whatever point in the game.
How's it, Brett? This is the post-mortem.
It is.
Yeah, it was really interesting. There was a lot of really crazy stuff going on there. I would imagine you would like the 40 and not really like the 29.
Yeah, I kind of expected this to be a little bit higher scoring, but yeah, like I said in our chat group at halftime, this feels like they should be able to go on with this. And bang, 14 points in 6 minutes puts pay to that real quick. So anyway, this of course is our new international season offering, a bit of a stream of consciousness about what we've seen today in San Diego, in Sydney. New Zealand 45 beat Fiji. There on Friday night in San Diego, to be fair, at the Snapdragon Stadium. 33,000 people there in San Diego for that game, which was fantastic. Yeah, looked great. Let's get straight into it then, mates, with the 5-word headline where the winning headline, you don't know this, the winning headline becomes the pod title. So here we go, head to head.
Ooh, and everyone knows how competitive I am. This is terrible. I wish I was awake. Okay, I'm going to go with 2. You pick the best one. Watch Joe's collar get tighter. There was this weird moment in the second half where the ball was being caromed off of knees and Tom Wright forgot to chase and Georgian wingers decided to be Lekebek Safas and, just score at will. And I thought that big giant collar he was wearing, it was something about the Kiwis. They have to have giant collars.
I like big collars. Yeah.
Overcompensation or something, but it started to become really tight. It looked like he was really not liking it very much. And my other one would be, let's see, NBA rugby in Sydney, because there just seemed to be no stop to the tries. I'm sure it was quite entertaining for a spectator, but I was thinking, and back to Joe, I was thinking he would have been really filthy at some of that.
Some of it, no doubt.
We cannot allow 29 to Georgia and then face the box because, excuse me, I think Cheslin Colby's got a little more wheels.
He does. I don't mind those. I like both of those. I'm going to give you, and I've taken a liberty here. I'm giving you world-leading Wallabies snare 4th straight.
That's 5 words?
Yep, world-leading is 1 word now.
You hate hyphens unless you like to use them. You're very populist. Yeah.
Yes, I do. So, I mean, look, you're only as good as your results.
You are, in fact, the world leaders because
4 straight.
You won the final one in the World Cup, right?
Correct. No one else in world rugby has won 4 straight.
So, this is kind of an abnormal question out of the order of the run sheet, but is Georgia a tier 2 team or are they a tier 1 team now?
They needed to win. A win tonight would have put them into the top 10 for their first time.
They felt like a tier 1.5.
Yeah.
Look,
I think no, but there were certainly moments there late in the first half where they looked out on their feet. They made 70 odd tackles in the first 21, 22 minutes, and they were already fatiguing. And then they got it evened up by half time. Then they scored the 2 tries in 6 minutes afterwards, and they got their second win, but then they lost their second win.
But then they kind of got it back at the end as well. They actually almost scored another one. Tom Wright's little scoop there at the end would have been.
Yes, and they got away.
Georgia versus Wales, it felt like they're the same.
Yeah, good question. Well, I actually feel like Georgia asked more questions of the Wallabies today. So,
I think Georgia probably came with that in mind. Let's prove to the world that it's not just a tier 2, charity match at the end.
Well, and
in fact, they came to win.
We said this last week. We've got to stop talking about Georgia being just a scrum team in the same way that we a decade ago had to stop about Japan being a nimble little team that's going to run you around. Like everyone's changed. No one fits the stereotype anymore.
They had more than that. And in fact, you might say that if they had had a little bit better set piece, Georgia might have been even more trouble. They were just more the counterattack. They were a counterattacking team.
Yeah, they look really good. To 2 games today, what worked for the winners, would you say?
Ooh. Well, so I just watched the Wallabies, so I'll go there and kind of work back. What worked for the Wallabies was interplay, support lines, keeping the ball alive. Just like you, I don't love Tate's pass, but at least he was getting to the ruck quickly. So if it was a wobbly one, at least he got there quickly. I think the Wallabies overcame some pretty poor play at 10 by kind of just flooding the zone with runners.
Can I make a quick point on that?
People were really available for the ball. I'll say that.
Yeah. Can I a quick point on 10? And I'm not going to go on it anymore. If Nola Locio has the game that Ben Donaldson has today, he would be being marked never to play for Australia again. And I'll be really interested to see what the commentary is from here, because already I'm seeing some double standard commentary on the socials. Sorry.
For me, I don't want to get. I'll stay with what works, but I will say I'm kind of done with the Ben Donaldson experiment. I've never been impressed by him in the first place, and I just think he lacks whatever that is.
Yeah.
No, I think so. I think people flooded the zone in the support lines. I thought there were some really interesting moments that showed me energy. Was the hallmark of the Schmidt era. You've written about work rate. I think it's something along those lines. I've loved seeing Harry Wilson at 8. I thought it's not about comparing, carries and can Bobby Valentine. Of course, Bobby can play anywhere. Bobby can play anywhere in the park and do a good carry. But having an 8 that's a distributor, but also someone who can see the field really well, allows Bobby to go hard at 6. And I like the configuration of a Bobby Fraser. Harry. I think that fits. That looks like Test Rugby loose trio.
That was going to be my first point. Valentini, McBride, Wilson as a 6, 7, 8 worked really well. I was so happy for Harry Wilson. He had a stormer of a game. Carried well, got past the line, showed some good hands. But actually, both he and Nick Frost at different points, just little tip passes. It just allowed the Wallabies to get a man and a half wider, and they could make an extra meter or 2 over the game line. They could get an offload away, and just little skills like that is a really good sign. I really like the back row for me was the absolute highlight for the Wallabies. To the point that when Georgia scored those 2 tries after half time, you could see the back row went, all right, if you blokes are going to bugger this up, we'll take over from here. And then McWright makes that line break. Wilson's on his outside, Valentini's on his inside, and they just got it done ultimately.
We'll do this all ourselves, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
What's funny is that Fraser made note of this in his post match is they all ran out of puff, and they all kind of like, I can take this to the house. No, give it to Harry.
No, I can't. No, and neither can I. Yeah,
Nick Frost.
Exactly.
And then finally Bobby's like, okay, I'll just fall over. By the way, I just love the way Bobby scores tries, and by that I mean the greatest risk nowadays in top rugby is to be held up. It just kills you. Just that law change really kills you. And so
I liked his he reversed over the line for his first try and then pirouetted.
It's so dynamic. It's so dynamic because I don't think there's many people who could grapple him in that movement because he's decided to swivel so hard. Yeah,
that's a good point. For New Zealand today, I think we've been talking about their wanting to see what they look like, and we certainly saw that today. Fiji were a bit disappointing, I think we've got to say. And I said to you or in our chat group that the Drua have got a bit of work to do here early in the first half, and it was a very Fijian Drua side that looked like a Super Rugby team. Unfortunately,
they were missing Levani Botia. They were missing some people on the ball. I think
they were missing a few. Randradra was really good. They had some from Europe, but not all of them, no doubt.
But it kind of went backward to, as we just said, some of the stereotypes of like it was individual, and it was not. They didn't seem to link up very well as they did in the World Cup. And their set pieces in the World Cup were exemplary. They're the best scrum in the World Cup. They did not have a good scrum on that sandy turf in San Diego. For me, what worked for the All Blacks was that quintessential thing of how do we keep winning, put on a good show, but introduce new talent. They brought everyone they brought in seemed to
new talent.
George
they
Bell
look good.
was hitting the line out, and that was one of his question marks. Everyone who came in that was uncapped seemed
Bell
to
was
be
good.
ready.
Ratimer was good. Noah Hotham was good.
Yeah.
Billy Proctor at 13 was excellent.
He was very good.
So yeah, even Anton Linnett-Brown at 12 was good.
ALB was ridiculous. I think for
Yeah.
about 20-minute stretch, he owned the whole pitch. It was like
Yeah.
the ALB show. And
He was
then, so for Proctor, okay, this is really early, and Kiwis will hate me for saying this, but I've never been convinced of Rieko Ani at the top levels at 13, except that he's just a wonderful athlete, can run. But interesting to me, if you could find a way to get him back onto the wing and have a proper 13 distributor, I think the All Blacks could score more.
Good point.
They were scoring at will.
They were. Yeah, they were. They really were. And, look, McKenzie looked good. I think he benefited from having Bowden Barrett at fullback. There was definitely good signs.
The double playmaker, that worked.
Yeah. And I like that, I've mentioned Ratimer and Hotham already, but, two really good scrum halves going forward for New Zealand now. Yeah. They're fine. If TJP can't recover from his injury, they'll be fine.
They're very annoying, the Kiwis, about one thing, and it's that they have an infinite number of 9s and 10s. It just doesn't matter.
And back rowers. Ethan Blackadder was extraordinary again. Yeah. Conversely, what maybe didn't work so well for Georgia and Fiji today, we've probably touched on Fiji a bit there. They just sort of looked pedestrian, and it was tough for them to compete today with New Zealand.
Yeah, I don't know what was wrong there exactly. It was the right vibe. San Diego's replete with a huge Fijian community, expatriate community. I felt like the shape of the game would have kind of suited them, which was wide open. But it's like one of those games where your opponent is one step ahead of you every single time, and it accumulates, and you look up and the scoreboard's gone.
Yeah. It's a fair point. Georgia, I think. Was it you on our chat group who made the point that their tier 2-ness is showing? It comes out different fitness levels. Yeah. Different fitness levels, different decision making and all that. Excuse me. They've got the hallmarks of a very, very good team. They are a good team. Let's be fair about that. They're a good team. They certainly had some moments where they were excellent in Sydney today.
Yeah, I can see them being
but
top.
They just can't quite string them together. Yeah.
And it's just these moments of lack of bloody-mindedness. I mean, they had the Wallabies on the ropes in 2 different occasions, which would have made the scoreboard really different. And even at the end, I mean, they were not going to win. They couldn't come back, but they could have made it where it was a 1 score, which would have been, one of the best results for them in the history.
When they got it back to 26-24, that was absolutely a fair reflection of the game to that point.
That one where Tom Wright scoops the it wasn't even an interception. It came into his hands as a gift. That all they had to do was reload one more time, and I'm very sure they would have scored. They were going to go full game line. What didn't work for Georgia is the same thing that kind of did work. They actually beat more defenders. They busted more tackles than the Wallabies did. They didn't trust in that. They were only looking for breakaways, and I think if they had trusted and reloaded a few more times in the tackle, the tight loose, they would have probably got really close to pulling off a famous upset.
Yeah, fair point. Lessons learned from today across any of the 4 teams we've seen. I'll start by saying the Wallabies are still learning their issues about discipline. They only conceded 8 penalties for the game last week against Wales in Melbourne. They'd already shelled 7 by halftime in Sydney today, and 5 of them were in their own half, and I'd put it to you that at least 4 of them were on their own line.
And the cards were back. The cards.
Yeah, and so let's touch on that of Dalgooners. I wasn't surprised that got upgraded.
No.
I've got to say. It's an out of control knee to the head, essentially.
I mean, a couple of years ago, we had this it was litigated in a way, and the theory was you have to have control of your own body in the air, and it's basically saying we're not so much of an aerial game like the AFL. But if you do get in the air, there's protocols you have to follow. And one of those is don't steady yourself by ramming your knee up. It's literally one of the moves in the UFC that's illegal if you're on the ground. So we know that knee to the head is one of the worst possible things. Yeah. So I think that was fair enough. I think the reactions of the Wallabies told it all. I think they all knew that he was in trouble. I mean, it's like, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
What you have to do, I think, in that moment, when you're up in the air and I kind of misjudged it, is you just kind of turn into a ragdoll, and then you're okay. Then
just
I think
somehow flop. Yes.
whatever contact then happens is kind of like
just sort of
just
get
a yellow.
big and wide. Yeah, exactly. And look, there will be plenty of debate about it online and on the socials already. And there was definitely, what's he supposed to do? What he's supposed to do is have control of his actions. Ultimately,
the decision is when you jump. So it's actually like people get that wrong. They go, no, it's before that. When you choose to leap into the air, you have to all the duty is on you.
You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, from that point on, everything will go against you.
Exactly right. So the discipline issues are still the same for the Wallabies. I think line out was good. Maul was good today. They scored two? Well, they scored three more tries. One was let back on a bit of over eagerness on Valentini's point, but I liked that they got the maul going. We didn't really see Georgia having a crack through their maul too much, but Australia's defence there looked a bit better. I liked that they were actually going to their maul back down in field and just sort of trying to go forward that way. So it sort of actually feels like the evolution is still in progress. We're still seeing that they are learning from game to game, which is great. That's what you want to see.
Yeah. For me, it was a lack of being able to put your foot down on the neck and sort of squeeze out your opponent and say, this is it. And I think that comes from kicking. Wallabies did not kick enough, especially the second half when you had the lead, had the margin. There were some really bad moments.
They could have played field position more.
And quantity. There were was it 3 kicks that were not out or went dead, or they were just...
Donaldson and Lolosio both put penalty kicks dead in goal.
Okay, I think it was 3 times.
Yeah,
so if you
I think
take
you might be
those
right.
3, that is a massive shift. That kept Georgia in the game for a long 10-minute period.
No, agree. I think the All Blacks learned a little bit more about their shape and their appearance today. There just seemed a little bit more definitiveness about their attack that I don't think we saw a lot of in the previous 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think the shape of second phase, just like the Wallabies were doing a loop around a la Johnny Sexton, I feel like All Blacks were adding a few things and maybe some things we hadn't seen in England, because I think England had more ability to counterattack and take it to the house. So they were a little more cagey.
Yes. England were playing a rush defense too, which Fiji weren't. So New Zealand had time today.
Fiji was very slow. He was the opposite of rush defense. It was terrible. And that's what would probably let them able to play some games. I think it's interesting on the second fold, I think they'd pull back and then there would be another wave. And you saw wings playing both sides, which I always love.
Yep.
And there were times when Caleb Clark was sort of untackleable again. So I felt like it was a happy team. And they're going to go into the rugby championship as a big problem for both of our teams.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that will be the other lesson for the Wallabies. And the lesson for Georgia and Fiji is consistency. Yet again, that's always going to be the challenge for those teams. But certainly the Wallabies will say, all right, we've done it. We've won 3 straight. We know we've now got to be a whole lot better before South Africa in 3 weeks' time. So that's just going to be an issue there. Here's a clip from here's Fraser McWright talking on Stan Sport straight after the game, and there's some interesting things that he says in this clip now for our podcasters. Clip here. So that was Fraser McWright, as I said, talking to Alana Ferguson on Stan Sport. I like that he said there, mate, to the question, are you positive? Are you feeling positive now? I like that he said, yeah, we kind of have to be, because they've done the job. They've won the 3 games. Now they've actually got to get on with being ready for the rugby championship. I really like that from Wright.
Fraser McMeasured. I like the fact that he's one of the few guys that I've heard from the Wallabies on these post-match interviews, which usually are really tough to do. You're out of breath and all that. But he actually has a good way of analyzing things, and I think he understood the shape
really well.
He wasn't getting ahead of himself. I liked how he talked about Harry Wilson and the idea of brotherhood.
I didn't know they'd never played a test together.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so I think there's something about the Wallabies, if they can form that kind of ethos, I think it's got something. The Wallabies, to me, have always played well when their loose forwards were superlative, when you had a proper 6, 7, 8, and you had clever guys on the ball and you knew when to go, when not to. So I think Fraser McWright's onto something there. I actually think he's kind of a captain type. That's just my opinion.
Could be. Yeah, it could be. No, I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. Some other results this weekend, and there's been a bit of a surprise. I don't know if you saw this on Friday. Spain 29 beat Tonga 20 in Nuku'alofa.
I saw that. Yeah,
that's so Tonga's lost 2 in a row now at home. That's interesting. And then Queensland and Wales played out a thriller in Brisbane on Friday night too. Wales ended up getting up 36-35. That was just a really entertaining game of rugby. That was actually cool to sit down. I actually sat down on the couch. I didn't have to worry about any notes. I could just watch that for fun, and it was a really, really enjoyable game.
Yeah, now I want to see Georgia play the Reds. They have
yeah. That'd be interesting. That would be interesting. Some games to come this weekend. South Africa against Portugal in Bloemfontein. Brazil hosting Hong Kong in Sao Paulo. Uruguay hosting Argentina in Punta del Este. Chile hosting Scotland on their worldwide tour of South America in Santiago. And then Japan, Italy in Sapporo on Sunday afternoon. And that then, mate, is a wrap on the Test Match post-mortems for the July Internationals. And with that, another service to rugby fulfilled. I've really enjoyed this. There's been something cathartic about the full-time focus, hasn't there?
Yeah, and I heard that Scotland's going to play in the Galapagos and the Falklands as well on their way home.
On their way home. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. A final thought, an observation before we go?
I just hope we have enough players to play you guys, the Wallabies.
Injuries.
I'm going to full underdog status as from now. Right now.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that. But tell us what you think on the 8-9 combo on all socials, or leave your thoughts in the comments section right here on the 8-9 combo YouTube channel. You can tell Harry and I on the socials in our usual places as well, at Harry Baldy Jones and at BMC Sport. Do like, follow, subscribe on your pod platform of choice and on YouTube as well, and make sure you get everything as soon as it drops, because we're doing lots of shows every week all of a sudden. This is the Test Match post-mortem from the 8-9 combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed, coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones. And we'll be back in your ears with Chasing the Sun producer Gareth Whitaker next week.
Come play with us. Sound effects.
This is the 8-9 Combo Podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones.